This year on Valentine's Day, you can support public radio and send flowers to a loved one anywhere in the country. For the love of public radio, you can order a floral bouquet or a half dozen or dozen roses. A portion of the cost helps support national programs like Morning Edition and local programs like Nothing But the Blues. Support FM 90. Call 1-800-987-ROSE. That's 1-800-987-7673, and we'll say it with roses. Telling the stories that built a nation. This is WFYI, Indianapolis.
Across Indiana on TV 20 is made possible in part by our members and support from Ovation Audio Video Specialists, blending home entertainment with your lifestyle. Stereo, video, and car audio with complete service and installation. And Ropke Graphics, family-owned since 1890. Specialist in short-run, full-color printing utilizing the Indigo Digital Offset Color Press. And by Basbo Pizza, an Indianapolis favorite since 1986. Located in the historic Massachusetts Avenue Arts District and in the heart of Broad Ripple Village.
They are the legends of baseball who never played in the major leagues, enduring racism because for these men, the game came first. Meet the heroes of Negro League Baseball. Next, as we go across Indiana.
Across Indiana is made possible by financial support from viewers like you and the Indiana Historical Society, an independent nonprofit organization committed to preserving the best of Indiana's heritage since 1830.
Welcome back to Across Indiana. Michael Atwood here. We'll spend some story time with an award-winning children's author a little later in this show. We'll also dive into the Hoosier State's only tropical reef. That's right, a tropical reef right here in Indiana. But first up, Oscar Charleston, C.I. Taylor, Bobby Robinson. During the early part of the century, these were some of the greatest names in baseball. Yet not a single one played a day in the major leagues, simply because of the color of their skin. Before Jackie Robinson shattered baseball's color line in 1946, there was a rich heritage among black baseball's elite, a league of their own, separate, but equally as spectacular as the majors. And here in the Hoosier State, Indianapolis was home to the most powerful team in the nation, a team that won the Colored World Championship in 1916. In the first of a two-part series, producer Todd Gould steps up to the plate with a look back at Indiana's contributions to the Negro National League.
We couldn't all stay at one place. Lots of time we'd have to stay different places. Maybe 4 or 5 players would stay here, and 3 or 4 stay over there, and different places. Because there wasn't no nice hotels, you know, we could stop in, so. And I didn't think about it. I didn't pay no mind. I just went on. All I wanted to do was play baseball.
In 1914, a Spanish-American war veteran, Charles Isham Taylor, came to Indianapolis, Indiana. C.I., as he was known, had served as the manager of an African-American baseball team in the Hoosier resort town of West Baden. When Taylor arrived in Indianapolis, he brought the nucleus of his club with him. The American Brewing Company agreed to sponsor the team with Taylor as the manager. They were known as the Indianapolis ABCs.
He was very successful as a manager. He never played baseball himself, but he had a wonderful knowledge of what a ball player should do. And people, he was a real gentleman, and he was highly respected.
He understood the fundamentals of the game and everything. And he knew how to run things, operate and whatnot. I guess that's what made him such a great manager.
Taylor's teams featured a legion of talented athletes. One of the greatest players of the era was Oscar Charleston, right fielder for the ABCs. His lightning speed earned him the title, the Hoosier Comet.
Oscar was a great player, one of the greatest outfielders I ever played with and against, really, I'm telling you. He was a colorful ball player too. And he could do it all. He could hit, run, and field, and throw.
Bill Owens played shortstop for Taylor's club. As a child, Owens watched the ABCs through a knothole in the fence at Washington Park. C.I. Taylor allowed him to practice with the squad as soon as Owens reached his teens. By 1926, Owens earned a professional contract with the ABCs.
In those days, if you had 20,000 people, that was a big crowd. Yeah, that was really a big crowd.
Bobby Robinson was one of Negro baseball's greatest third basemen. Bobby came to Indianapolis to play for the ABCs when he was only 14 years old.
We would travel by cars. Piled everybody in the car and the luggage and everything. We had a big thing they call a rack, a luggage rack. And that would be on the side of the car on the running board. And that would be full of luggage. The ball players would be full in the car. You couldn't have room to do nothing but just sit there. It was tough. I'm telling you, when I said tough, it was tough.
Once in St. Louis, Robinson nabbed a line drive off his shoelaces, quickly tagged out a runner coming at him, then tossed the ball over to second base for a force out, single-handedly executing a triple play. Robinson's efforts thrilled the crowd, as well as John McGraw, manager of the Major League's New York Giants.
New York Giants was at that ball game, and John McGraw was manager of the Giants at that time. And he was the first one to get up. He got up and gave me a hard handshake and told me what a great third baseman I was. And he told me right away, he said, number one, he said, if you was a white boy, he said, today, you probably would be playing third base for me, for the Giants. He told me that.
In 1920, C.I. Taylor and Chicago American Giants coach Rube Foster, two bitter rivals, put their differences behind them to work at organizing black baseball. Elwood Knox, sports editor for the Indianapolis Freeman, helped the two draft a constitution that formed the Negro National League. The American Giants and the ABCs were part of an 8-team circuit that stretched from Detroit to Dayton to Kansas City, with teams traveling by car through the most segregated areas of the Midwest.
It was rough getting a place to stay, a nice place to stay, and then it was rough finding a nice place to eat. You could find places, but they wouldn't serve you, and that was rough. I mean, it was rough.
A lot of guys, they'd call you nigger. Well, you just accept that because they always, the fans and all would call you nigger. Those kind of fans would holler and call you all kind of the names when you go out of town. Go into them little towns where blacks wasn't no blacks. They would call you all kind of names. You wouldn't pay no attention.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder myself what kept us going. I guess you didn't think about that. All you was thinking about just getting to another town. I never did think nothing about it because I knew that's the way it was, in those times.
When C.I. Taylor passed away in 1922, the Chicago Whip wrote, "He fought for baseball, he lived for baseball, he died for baseball." Taylor's passion fueled the Indianapolis ABCs on an all-star tour that blazed new trails in the other major league.
The game come first. You just love the game. And there was no such thing, well, I ain't gonna play no ball because I know what the people gonna do. There was no such thing as that. You're gonna accept whatever happened. So the game came first. You just love the game. Yeah.
And be sure to join us next week as we hit the road with the world's most famous barnstorming team, the Indianapolis Clowns.
You had to have some faith in order to stay on that road and travel like that, knowing that you're just as good as a white ball player, but you never will get that chance.
Colorful and controversial, the Indianapolis Clowns. That's next week on Across the Media. Want to visit a tropical reef? In Indiana, you only have to go as far as Terre Haute.
Not a whole lot of tropical marine biology goes on in the middle of the Midwest, and people seem particularly surprised to find that we're doing this right in the heart of Terre Haute.
Grab your snorkel and stay tuned, because Dave Stelk takes off to tropical Terre Haute. Bet you've never heard that phrase before. But now we turn to the world of authors and literature. Children's books have come a long way since the days when Dick and Jane could see Spot run. The books written for today's children are in many ways as sophisticated as the ones written for adults, as J. Robert Cook discovered when he met an award-winning Hoosier author.
Critics bemoan the idea that we are becoming a nation of illiterates, that nobody reads anymore. Well, a visit to the children's section of any major bookstore or to a specialty shop such as this one, Treehouse Tales, on Indianapolis's north side, will quickly dispel that rumor. The demand for books for children has never been greater, and the variety and quality of these books has never been better. But behind each book, no matter how sophisticated or how elaborate, lies an age-old tradition, that of the storyteller. Valeska Gregory is such a storyteller. From her home near the Butler University campus in Indianapolis, this teacher and published poet has written a number of very popular children's stories. Stories that grew out of her love of poetry.
Both my children were voracious readers, and my rule was that we always had to bring home library books in multiples of 5, because then I knew how many I had to look for and not have a lot of overdue fines. So we typically brought home 20 or 30 books a week, and I read them and got intrigued by the combination of art and text. And a picture book is almost like a sonnet in that if you open the pages and turn them, there are, after the front matter and the title, there are 14 to 15 double-page spreads, so that each of them is a different visual image after you turn the page. And it's a very unique form and format.
Her love of writing comes to Valeska by way of her parents, Czech immigrants. Each night, while growing up in a small town in northwest Indiana, they would entertain her and her brothers with stories of their family, or ones that they had made up themselves. Even today, Valeska draws on her own family for inspiration, such as the time her daughter Holly was frightened by an attic door in their new house, an event that became the basis for Valeska's story, Kate's Giants.
In Kate's Giants, there's an attic door. Kate's parents tell her that if she can think these scary things out, then she can think them out. And so she does. She finally gets up enough courage to do that. But then it occurs to her that if she can think them out, then she could also think in whatever she wanted. So by the end of the book, all of the scary things are back, but they're not scary anymore. They're friendly. And she's thought them up herself. In some ways, I think it's more difficult than writing for adults. Children are so much more honest than adults are. They will tell you what they think of a book, and they don't miss details the way adults sometimes do. Also, although you're writing for children, you are also writing for the teachers who will use the books, the librarians who will buy the books, the parents and grandparents who will read the books to the children. So you have a much wider audience for your book than, the one people typically think of as just children. When I speak I do a lot of speaking across the country, and when I'm speaking to first graders, for example, they will raise their hands very seriously, and they will say, "Do you erase a lot when you write?" Because that's what they're concerned about. A fifth grader will look you straight in the eye and say, "How much money do you make anyway?" They really vary in their answers. But the letters are wonderful. I got a letter once from a little girl who said, "I have just read your newest book." She said, "It is absolutely," and then she spelled out the word she wanted, and it was S-O-U-P, soup, E-R-B, superb. And it is always encouraging, when you get letters from children. There are many people who are beginning to say that we are not as child-centered a society as we need to be. In the way, for example, that I was lucky enough to have in my neighborhood, immigrant families that I know and have met always seem to talk about doing things for the children. The children are the center of their activities. And I think unless you are willing and interested enough and passionate enough about the words and the books and the children, it would be very difficult to succeed as a children's book writer.
This portion of Across Indiana is brought to you by the town of Cope.
Small towns don't get much smaller than Cope, but they can deal with it, right? Cope, on the eastern edge of Morgan County, is so small they had to abbreviate their population. Cope has a pop of 23 residents. The Across Indiana crew conducted a simple experiment. We timed our drive through Cope, heading east from one sign to the other. In less than 10 seconds, you've already passed Cope's only business, Dale's Wood Designs, which happened to be closed when we drove through. We also whizzed by this nifty roadside bench. In about 20 seconds, you've reached the other side of Cope. Cope, Indiana, the town you can't help but to speed through, and this week's honorary sponsor of Across Indiana. Now, if you'd like your town to sponsor an episode of our little show, and you can beat Cope's time, then write to us in care of WFYI Television, 1401 North Meridian Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46202.
Across Indiana, sponsored by Cope, where our motto is we can handle just about anything, except when it gets hot out and then we whine and complain. Boy, do we complain.
This is from a book that will be out this spring called Looking for Angels, with illustrations by Leslie Baker. "Remember," said Sarah's grandpa as he tucked in the quilt, "tomorrow we'll be looking for angels." Sarah laughed and wrinkled her nose. "It sounds pretty silly to me," she said. "You never know just when an angel might appear," Grandpa said, "so you'll have to be careful not to miss a thing." No matter what her grandpa said, the next morning Sarah expected a perfectly ordinary day, plain as a brown sparrow. But that is definitely not what Sarah got. When Sarah came into the kitchen for breakfast, Grandpa was waiting. "I hope you didn't miss the morning sun," he said. "It sometimes sleeps on the four-poster bed." "But sun can't sleep," said Sarah. It sometimes seems to, he said. If I were you, I'd look again. So Sarah did. Like the yellow-eyed cat, all whiskery and warm, the sunlight on the rumpled quilt purred its patchwork dreams and yawned. You were right, Sarah said. The sun was curled up on the bed with the cat. Maybe you didn't see it at first because you weren't awake enough. Maybe. Sarah plopped a fresh raspberry in her mouth and grinned. I haven't seen an angel yet. I expect not, said Grandpa. But then, I think you did miss the jewels in my garden. Sarah turned around and looked again. Golden trumpets. There were angels no bigger than the head of a pin, and angels tall as the clouds. Now these are what I call angels, Sarah said. Those are angels, all right, said Grandpa. But I was looking for an everyday angel, the kind most people don't take time to see. But you can't see. Sarah stopped. She thought about how she'd missed the yellow-eyed sun and the jewels in the garden, missed the circus and the baby rabbit. Then Sarah looked very hard at the far side of the garden where the honeysuckle grew. Grandpa, come quick, she whispered. I think it's an angel. A hummingbird, blue-green and shimmering, wings quickening faster than the eye can see, hovered like grace between the earth and sky.
A reminder for the young and young at heart from children's author Valeska Gregory. Keep an eye open for that special magic in the seemingly ordinary. You never know when you might see an angel. And our final story for this trip probably has more to do with angel fish than any winged cherubs. Like it or not, Indiana is stereotyped. That is, there are certain things visitors expect to find in the Hoosier State. Cornfields as far as the eye can see, a rusty basketball rim hanging on the back of a red barn. But no one would expect a tropical reef thriving in a warehouse in Terre Haute, Indiana. Dave Stelk heads for tropical waters, which ironically are on the shores of the Wabash.
What can you say about Terre Haute, Indiana?
Probably not known to be a social hub or cultural metropolitan area or anything.
Sadly, over the years, Terre Haute has been the butt of jokes and tagged with some unflattering nicknames.
Armpit of Indiana, I think maybe I heard once or twice in school. Terre Haute is kind of known for that mysterious smell.
Ah, 'tis better to light a votive candle than to curse smelly armpits, or something like that. Lifelong resident Morgan Lidster has done his part to brighten Terre Haute's image. On the shores of the fabled Wabash, he's found tropical sunshine, where, if you were to consider at least one awful Terre Haute nickname, some folks think the sun don't shine.
Not a whole lot of tropical marine biology goes on in the middle of the Midwest, and people seem particularly surprised to find that we're doing this right in the heart of Terre Haute, right behind the courthouse, as a matter of fact. And it's always daytime, and it's always humid and 80 degrees in our facility. So you can pretty much come and enjoy the tropics here just about any time.
It looks like just another Terre Haute storefront, but the sign out front identifies it as Indiana's largest reef display.
In terms of coral reef display or living coral, living reef display, we have the largest facility that I'm aware of in the United States.
Some people might look at this and think it's just a giant aquarium, a tank with some rocks in it. Nope, it's a functioning reef, a miniature version of the kind you might find off the Florida Keys.
Yeah, we do consider them live functioning pieces of reef. We basically let them function just like a natural reef would.
The secret to reef building rests in a box like this. Morgan licensed this simple process from a Smithsonian scientist. Morgan cultures tiny plankton as well as specific algae, the same species found growing along natural reefs. Salt water is added. Tidal flows are simulated. Ultraviolet lights turn on and off in the same cycle as the sun and the moon. The result? A delicate marine ecosystem, a living reef growing in a Terre Haute, Indiana warehouse.
This reef right here, this 6,000-gallon system's only about 6.5 months old, and we're really beginning
Who would have thought that in Terre Haute you would find brain coral growing and replenishing itself, or a clownfish living in symbiosis with a poisonous purple sea anemone,